They say the strongest foundations can crumble when trust is broken. For years, I thought my marriage was unshakable, built on love, honesty, and the vows we exchanged on our wedding day. We were that couple, partners in every sense of the word, two halves of a whole that were meant to last a lifetime. But I was wrong, so painfully wrong. I'm Sophia, and for 10 years I was married to the man I thought I knew inside out. His name is Daniel, and we shared a life together that many would envy. We weren't just husband and wife, we were best friends. From the very beginning, our relationship felt effortless, like we were made for each other. We'd met at university, a chance encounter in a coffee shop that led to hours of conversation. Our love story grew from there. We were inseparable, finishing each other's sentences, laughing at inside jokes, and building a life that, to everyone else, looked perfect. I remember our wedding day like it was yesterday. The way Daniel looked at me as I walked down the aisle, his eyes filled with love and admiration, as if he couldn't believe his luck. The vows we exchanged were heartfelt, a promise to always stand by each other's side, to weather the storms and enjoy the sunshine. And for a while we did just that. We built a beautiful home, advanced in our careers, and celebrated each milestone together. Birthdays, anniversaries, promotions. But life isn't a fairy tale. Even the happiest marriages face challenges, and ours was no exception. Over time we fell into a routine like so many couples do. Work became demanding, and the time we once spent together began to dwindle. We were still partners, but something was changing. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, the closeness we once shared started to fade. It all began on a cold December evening. I remember it vividly, not because it was unusual, but because of how *normal* everything seemed. Daniel came home late from work again. He'd been working extra hours for weeks, claiming a big project at the firm needed his attention. As always, I kissed him on the cheek and asked how his day went. He gave me the same tired smile, mumbled something about long meetings, and disappeared into the shower. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because of anything specific, but because an unsettling feeling gnawed at me. It's hard to describe, but if you've ever experienced the quiet, almost imperceptible shift in someone you love, you'll know what I mean. There was something different about Daniel lately. He was distracted, distant in a way that wasn't physical but emotional. He was there, but not really *. At first, I convinced myself it was nothing. After all, we'd been together for so long. Every couple goes through rough patches, right? People get busy, they get stressed, and maybe that's all this was. But as the days passed, the feeling of unease only grew stronger. I began to notice things, small things that by themselves wouldn't mean much, but together painted a picture that I couldn't ignore. He'd get strange phone calls late at night, stepping outside to take them. He started locking his phone, something he never used to do. And then there were the texts, brief, vague messages that he'd quickly swipe away when I entered the room. It wasn't like Daniel to be secretive. He was always open with me about everything, so why was he acting so differently now? I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it's work *, I told myself. Maybe he's under more pressure than he's letting on *. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. One Saturday morning, as I sat at the kitchen table sipping coffee, I decided to confront him. Not in an accusatory way, but just to clear the air. Maybe I was overthinking it all. Maybe I just needed to hear from him that everything was fine, and my imagination was getting the best of me. "Daniel," I began, my voice steady but uncertain, "is everything okay? You've been different lately." He looked up from his phone, a slight frown creasing his forehead. "Different? What do you mean?" "You've been distant and secretive," I said softly, not wanting to sound like I was accusing him of anything. "I feel like something's off." For a moment, he didn't say anything, just stared at me with those deep brown eyes I have fallen in love with. Then he sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Soph, I'm just stressed. Work has been crazy, and I haven't been myself. I'm sorry if I've made you feel that way." It was a good answer, a reasonable one, but it didn't sit right. Maybe it was the way he avoided looking directly at me, or maybe it was that gut feeling again, the one I couldn't shake. I wanted to believe him, to take his words at face value. But deep down, I knew there was more to the story. Weeks passed, and things didn't improve. In fact, they got worse. Daniel spent more nights away, claiming business trips and late meetings. Our conversations grew shorter, more transactional, like we were just going through the motions of being married. I felt like I was living with a stranger, and every time I looked at him, a part of me wondered who he had become. Then one night, I found the proof. It was an accident, really. Daniel had left his phone on the nightstand, something he rarely did. And while I've never been the kind of person to invade someone's privacy, that night, something inside me snapped. I picked up his phone and unlocked it. My hands were shaking, my heart pounding in my chest, as I scrolled through his messages. There it was. A series of texts between him and someone named L, messages filled with affectionate words, plans for secret meetings, and promises that left no room for doubt. He was having an affair. I felt the world tilt beneath me. My stomach churned, my hands went numb, and all I could do was stare at the screen in disbelief. The man I loved, the man I had built my life with, was betraying me in the worst possible way. That night, I didn't confront him. I couldn't. I felt too shattered, too humiliated to even speak. I waited for him to come home, pretended everything was fine, and cried myself to sleep once he was out cold. I thought about the years we had spent together, how I had trusted him with everything, shared my most intimate thoughts, dreams, and fears. I thought about the small, quiet moments we had shared, lying in bed late at night, whispering about the future. All of it felt like a cruel joke now, as if everything we had built together was based on a lie. The next morning, as he prepared for yet another business trip, I knew I couldn't stay silent any longer. The weight of the truth was too much to bear. "Daniel," I said, my voice steady but icy, "who is L?" The blood drained from his face. He froze halfway through packing his suitcase, and for a moment, I could see the panic in his eyes. He quickly recovered, though, trying to play it off. "Al, I don't know what you're talking about," he said, but his voice wavered. "Don't lie to me," I snapped, holding up his phone. "I saw the messages." "I know." There was a long, heavy silence. He looked at me, then at the floor, as if the weight of his own guilt was crushing him. Finally, he sighed and sat down on the edge of the bed. "It's not what you think," he started, but I cut him off. "Don't insult me by pretending it's nothing," I said, my voice cracking with the effort to hold back tears. "You've been cheating on me, Daniel. How could you?" "I never meant for it to happen," he said quietly, his head in his hands. "It was a mistake. I was lonely. We've been growing apart, and I—" "You were lonely?" I interrupted, my anger bubbling to the surface. Asterisky asterisk was the one who's been sitting here, waiting for you to come home every night, wondering why my husband is acting like a stranger. You don't get to use loneliness as an excuse for what you've done. Tears filled my eyes as I stood there, my chest tight with the overwhelming mix of anger, pain, and betrayal. I had loved this man with everything I had, and this was how he repaid me. "I'm sorry," he whispered, but the words felt empty, hollow. I turned away from him, wiping the tears from my face. I couldn't look at him. I couldn't even be in the same room as him. "You need to leave," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I can't do this anymore." He tried to apologize again, but I didn't want to hear it. The damage was done. Trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to repair. And in that moment, I knew our marriage was over. The next few days were a blur of emotions: anger, sadness, grief. I went through the motions of ending things, packing up his stuff, and filing for divorce. Friends and family rallied around me, offering support and comfort, but nothing could erase the pain of what I have lost. Months passed, and though the wound was still fresh, I slowly began to heal. I started focusing on myself, rediscovering who I was outside of my marriage. It wasn't easy, and there were days when the sadness felt unbearable, but with time, I grew stronger. One day I received a letter from Daniel. He apologized, genuinely this time, and admitted that he had made the biggest mistake of his life. He begged for forgiveness, but I knew that while forgiveness might come with time, trust was something I could never give him again. Sometimes the people we love hurt us in ways we never thought possible, but in those moments we learn more about ourselves than we ever thought we could. I learned that I am stronger than I ever knew, and that my worth isn't defined by someone else's actions. In the end, Daniel's betrayal unraveled our vows, but it also unraveled the part of me that had forgotten how strong I could be on my own.